Welcome back, motherfucker. Welcome back. In the last screencast, I showed you how to set up a static front page template. As you can see, now it's just an empty grid. It's 24 columns, which is a problem to me. I hate 24 columns. It's the problem is 24 columns doesn't leave much room for adequate gutter widths. The gutters are the white spaces in between the gray bars here. The gray bars are the columns themselves. You can only set the column count of the grid once. You can only do it before you start placing blocks on the grid. Period. So you need to do it now and think how many columns you want. 24 columns is a too high number. You don't need the granularity of 24 columns here. And it doesn't leave much room or space for adequate gutter widths. We want 30 pixel gutters at least. At least if you ask me. The reason is we're not in 1998 anymore. Back then it was trendy to have very small gutters and everything was pixel, like very tight, and it was common to see 10 pixel gutters and even 5 pixel gutters. But now, in 2014, we live in a world of very spacious web design. It's common to see, large padding and very large gutter sizes with lots of space between the elements on your page. For that reason, we want 30 pixels or even more. But usually I use 30 pixels currently for my client projects and my own projects. But if I set this to 30 as well, so we have a nice visual rhythm in our grid, meaning that they are equal, we get a side width of 1410 pixels. That's too wide for most laptops and so on. So we are aiming for a global grid width of 900 to maybe 1200, 1250 pixels. 1400 is too wide. It wouldn't make it possible for us to have adequate white space on the left and right side of our browser window. So it wouldn't look very sexy because you need that white space. You don't want your content to go all the way to the left and right side of the browser window. But if we take the default column count down to 12, you can see here we would get a global grid width of 690. Now what we can do is make the global column width twice 60. Now it's exactly twice the amount of gutter, which also creates a nice visual rhythm for our grid because it's a multiple by 2 or dividable by 2. That creates a nice visual flow, a nice visual rhythm to your grid. And you can see we get a grid width of 1050 pixels. Not bad. If you want an even wider gutter width, you could set it at 35 and maybe 70. But I think this is strikes a good balance and will create a nice, beautiful website. But as you can see, when I grab this slider and change it to 12, and why 12? 12 is because it's a number that's dividable with a lot of numbers, like 2. It can be divided by 3, by 4, and by 6. So you can create 3 equally sized columns on your page. You couldn't do that with a 16 column grid. 16 columns can only be divided by 4, and 8 and 2, but not by 3. So you would have a problem there. So 12 is probably the most common column amount in web design today, and has been for several years.